I was just a story, until he made it his mission to find me. Nova Blackwood wiped condensation from her helmet visor as she navigated the crumbling corridors of the alien ruins. The abandoned structure stretched deep beneath the surface of Kepler 742, its walls etched with writings in a language lost to time. Her boots left tracks in the dust that had settled undisturbed for centuries, each step echoing through the empty halls. "Anything interesting on the scans, Pixel?" she asked her AI companion, a small drone hovering by her shoulder. The device's soft blue light cast dancing shadows on the ancient walls. "Negative on biological signatures," Pixel chirped, "but I'm detecting unusual energy readings approximately 50 meters ahead. Pattern suggests active technology." Nova frowned. Active tech in ruins this old was never a good sign. Usually meant scavengers, pirates, or worse, but she hadn't spent 3 years tracking down these ruins to turn back now. The university's grant money was running out, and she needed a significant discovery to justify further funding. The corridor opened into a vast chamber, its ceiling lost in darkness above. Fallen columns created a maze of obstacles, their surfaces covered in the same mysterious script she'd been studying. But what caught her attention was the faint purple glow emanating from a partially buried console near the chamber center. "Well, that's definitely not supposed to be active," Nova muttered, approaching carefully. The console's design was unlike anything she'd seen in her years of studying alien archaeology. Its surface seemed to ripple like liquid metal, responding to her proximity. Pixel scanned the device, projecting a holographic analysis. Energy signature is consistent with precursor technology, but there's something else. It appears to be receiving a signal. Nova's heart raced. The precursors were an ancient civilization that had vanished millennia ago, leaving only scattered ruins across the galaxy. Finding active precursor tech was the kind of discovery that could make her career. As she reached out to touch the console's surface, the liquid metal responded, forming patterns that pulsed with light. A holographic projection burst to life, filling the chamber with stars. A star map. And at its center, a pulsing marker that definitely wasn't part of any known star chart. "Help, please." The words echoed through her helmet comm, so faint she almost thought she'd imagined them. "They're coming. Must warn. Experiments." "Pixel, are you recording this?" Nova's hand instinctively went to the pistol at her hip as she scanned the chamber. "Affirmative. Signal appears to be embedded in a quantum frequency. Origin point matches the marker on the star map." The message continued, broken and distorted. "My name is Thessa. Prisoner. Dominion. Others like me. Please." Static consumed the rest, but the star map remained, its mysterious marker beckoning. Nova's mind raced. The Dominion Empire controlled nearly a quarter of known space, their technological superiority maintained through ruthless expansion and mysterious research programs that no one dared question. If they were holding prisoners and conducting experiments. A distant rumble shook dust from the ceiling. Nova's suit sensors flashed warning indicators, multiple ships entering atmosphere. "Pixel, download everything you can from that console. We need to." The chamber trembled again, more violently this time. Through the dust, red scanning beams swept the ruins. "Dominion search drones. Download complete," Pixel announced, detaching from the console. Nova grabbed the drone and sprinted for the exit tunnel. Behind her, she heard the distinctive whine of Dominion plasma rifles powering up. They must have detected the console's activation. "Warning," Pixel chirped as they ran, multiple hostile signatures converging on our position. Nova activated her emergency beacon as she ran. Her ship's autopilot would bring it as close as possible to her position. She just had to reach the surface before. Plasma bolts sizzled past her head, scorching the ancient walls. She dove behind a fallen column, drawing her pistol. The ruin's darkness worked to her advantage. The Dominion troops would have to come through the narrow corridor in small groups. "Pixel, initiate Protocol Omega," she whispered. The drone's blue light dimmed to barely visible. If she didn't make it, at least the data would reach the university. 3 armored figures appeared in the corridor, their red visors scanning methodically. Nova waited until they passed her position, then fired 3 quick shots. Her modified pistol's electromagnetic pulse dropped 2 of them instantly, their powered armor locking up. The third managed to turn, but Nova was already moving, using the fallen soldier as cover while she sprinted for the exit. More troops were rappelling down from above, but they were too late. Nova burst from the ruins into Kepler 742's perpetual twilight, just as her ship swooped in low, cargo ramp already lowering. She leaped aboard, boots magnetizing to the deck as the ship screamed skyward. Multiple pursuit craft detected, Pixel warned as Nova strapped into the pilot's seat. Plot a course to the nearest hyperspace point, she ordered, taking manual control. And start analyzing that data. Something tells me we just stumbled into something much bigger than ancient ruins. As her ship broke atmosphere, plasma fire streaking past the viewports, Nova's mind returned to the mysterious message. Someone named Thessa was out there, trapped and desperate enough to hide a distress call in ancient precursor tech. And now the Dominion was willing to kill to keep that secret. Well, Nova thought as she punched in the hyperspace coordinates, they shouldn't have made it interesting. She'd never been good at ignoring mysteries, especially ones that shot at her. Whatever the Dominion was hiding, wherever this Thessa was imprisoned, she was going to find out the truth. The stars stretched into lines as her ship jumped to hyperspace, leaving the Dominion pursuit behind. But Nova knew this was just the beginning. She had the star map, she had the message, and now she had a mission. The real question was, who could she trust to help her unravel this conspiracy? Pixel, set course for the outer rim, she decided. I know someone who might be crazy enough to help us take on the Dominion. The neon-lit streets of Port Nexus thrummed with life, a chaotic blend of species and cultures that made it perfect for those wanting to disappear. Nova pulled her hood lower as she navigated the crowded marketplace, Pixel concealed in her backpack. The drone's sensors would warn her if any Dominion agents were nearby. She found her target in the Starfall Cantina, a dimly lit establishment favored by smugglers and information brokers. Riker sat at his usual corner table, his silver-scaled skin and luminescent eyes marking him as a Silurian. 3 empty glasses suggested he'd been there a while. Still drowning your sorrows in synthetic alcohol? Nova asked, sliding into the seat across from him. Riker's head tilted, a Silurian expression of amusement. Still chasing ancient mysteries into early graves. His voice had that musical quality unique to his species. Last I heard, you were banned from 3 sectors for unauthorized archaeological activities. 4 sectors now, she corrected. But I found something, Rick. Something big enough to bring the Dominion down on my head. That got his attention. The Silurian had no love for the Dominion after they'd annexed his homeworld. Show me. Nova nodded to Pixel, who emerged from her pack and projected the star map. Riker's eyes widened as he recognized the precursor technology signature. By the void, he whispered, where did you find this? Kepler 742. There was a message hidden in it. Someone named Thessa being held prisoner by the Dominion. They're running experiments, Rick. The kind they don't want anyone knowing about. Riker's scales rippled, a sign of agitation. The markers in the dead zone. No one goes there except military ships. No one with official clearance, Nova corrected. But I seem to remember someone bragging about knowing all the sensor blind spots in Dominion space. That was before they put a price on my head. He drained his 4th glass. Besides, my ship's an impound. Again. Nova placed a credit chip on the table. Enough to clear your debts and fuel up. Plus half my research grant if we find what we're looking for. Your entire grant, he countered. 70%. Deal. His hand closed over the chip. But we do this smart. I've got a contact in Dominion intelligence who owes me. Might be able to get us more intel on what we're flying into. A commotion at the cantina's entrance cut their negotiation short. 3 Dominion peacekeepers in civilian clothes, but their rigid posture gave them away. "Time to go," Nova muttered. "Back exit." "Too obvious." "Kitchen." Riker stood casually, stretching. "The chef owes me a favor." They made their way to the bar, trying to look unhurried. One of the peacekeepers was showing Nova's hologram to the bartender. The kitchen was hot and cramped, filled with steam from bubbling pots. The chef, a massive 4-armed Kralaxian, took one look at Riker and pointed to a waste disposal chute. "You owe me another one," Riker told him before diving in. Nova followed, Pixel tucked safely in her pack. The chute deposited them in a dumpster 3 levels down. Nova emerged sputtering, covered in something she hoped was just cooking oil. "Your contact," she said, wiping grime from her face. "How soon can they meet?" The dead zone lived up to its name. No civilian ships ventured here, where twisted debris from ancient battles created a maze of navigational hazards. Nova and Riker's stolen corvette, repainted and broadcasting fake credentials, crept through the field of wreckage on minimal power. "Sensor station ahead," Pixel warned, maintaining electromagnetic silence. Through the view screen, Nova watched a Dominion patrol ship pass less than a kilometer away, its crew oblivious to their presence. Riker's knowledge of sensor blind spots had proven invaluable. "There," Riker pointed to a distant shape almost hidden against the backdrop of a nebula. "The facility matches the coordinates from the precursor message." The research station hung in space like a malevolent spider, dark spires extending from a central hub. No identifying marks, no broadcast signals, nothing to suggest its existence on any official records. "Pixel, scan for life signs," Nova whispered, though there was no reason to be quiet in space. Multiple signatures detected. Majority appear to be Dominion personnel, but unusual readings from the lower levels. "Biopatterns I cannot identify." The experiments. Riker's scales darkened with anger. "My contact was right. They're pushing the boundaries of genetic science, trying to create something." Nova studied the station's layout on their tactical display. "Security looks heavy. How do we get in?" "We don't." Riker smiled, showing silver teeth. "Not directly. See that supply ship docked at the upper port? My friends in the Resistance provided codes to clone its transponder signal. Next time it leaves, we follow its exit vector, then dock in its place before the station realizes the real ship is gone. And if they check the cargo, they won't. Station this secret. They're more worried about things leaving than arriving. Besides, their supply manifest shows they're desperate for new testing equipment. That's us." The wait was excruciating. Nova used the time to memorize the station schematics Riker's contact had provided. Finally, the supply ship detached, following its usual route out of the dead zone. Now, Riker engaged their engines, matching the departing ship's trajectory perfectly. Their corvette's modified systems duplicated its transponder signal as they approached the vacant dock. The station's automated systems accepted their credentials. Docking clamps engaged with a shutter that ran through the hull. "We have approximately 20 minutes before the shift change," Riker said, checking his weapons. "The lower labs will be minimally staffed." They moved through the station's sterile corridors like ghosts. Pixel's hacked security feed warning them of patrols. The deeper they went, the colder it became. Finally, they reached a heavily secured door marked only with a warning symbol. "Pixel," Nova whispered. The drone interfaced with the security panel. Seconds stretched like hours before the door slid open with a soft hiss. The laboratory beyond was a nightmare made real. Stasis tubes lined the walls, filled with shadowy shapes that might once have been people. Holographic displays showed genetic sequences being twisted into new forms. "Help, please." The voice was weak but unmistakable. The same one from the precursor message. They found her in a separate chamber, suspended in a column of light. Her form shifted constantly, as if her very molecules couldn't decide what shape to take. Thessa. Nova approached the containment field. "We're here to help." The beam's eyes opened, glowing with inner light. "You heard me." The message. "Don't try to talk." Raikir worked on the control panel. "We're getting you out of here." "No, must warn. Project Ascension." "They're trying to." Her form stabilized briefly, revealing features of impossible beauty. "They want to force evolution, create perfect beings. But the process kills most subjects." "Most?" Nova asked. "I survived, changed. They want to replicate my transformation, create warriors, but it's wrong. The changes must be natural, chosen." Alarms suddenly blared through the station. Raikir cursed in his native tongue. "They found the real supply ship," he reported. "Security teams mobilizing." "Get her out," Nova ordered, drawing her weapon. "I'll hold them off." The containment field sparked as Raikir overrode its safeties. Thessa collapsed into his arms, her form still flickering between states. "More prisoners," she gasped. "Others, like me. We'll come back for them," Nova promised. "But right now, we need to move." They retreated through the laboratories as security forces converged on their position. Nova's modified pistol dropped the first wave, but more would come. "The docking bay will be locked down," Raikir said as they ran. "We need another way out." "The research vessels," Thessa suggested weakly. "Bay 17. Emergency protocols." The resistance base was carved into an asteroid at the edge of known space. As their shuttle docked, Nova watched Thessa practice controlling her transformations. The former prisoner could now hold a stable form for hours, though the effort clearly drained her. "The others in the facility," Thessa said, her iridescent skin rippling. "They're suffering. The transformations, they're not ready. Their bodies, their minds, they're breaking." Ricker's resistance contacts had converted an old mining facility into a command center. Holograms showed the research station's defenses, updated hourly by their spies. "Security's doubled since our escape," Nova noted, studying the displays. "They're expecting us to return." "Not us specifically," Raikir corrected. "My contact says the Dominion doesn't know who raided the facility. They've locked down all information about Project Ascension. Officially, that station doesn't exist." "Which means unofficial methods." A new voice joined them. Commander Vess, leader of the resistance cell, was a scared veteran of the Silurian rebellion. "My people are ready. The Dominion took our world. Now we take something of theirs." Nova shook her head. "A direct assault would be suicide. We need something smarter." Pixel projected the station schematics. Analysis complete. Primary weakness detected in containment systems. A targeted electromagnetic pulse could disable the stasis fields holding the test subjects and kill them in the process. Thessa interjected. "The transformations are delicate. Interrupt them wrongly, and..." She didn't need to finish. They'd seen the failed experiments in the laboratory. "What about the supply lines?" Raikir suggested. "The station needs specialized equipment, rare materials. If we could track a shipment." "No time." Thessa's form flickered with agitation. "They're accelerating the experiments. I can feel them. The pain." Nova watched her friend struggle to maintain coherence. Whatever connection existed between Thessa and the other test subjects, it was getting stronger. "There might be another way," she said slowly. "Thessa, you can sense the others. Could you guide them? Help them control their transformations like you've learned to?" Understanding dawned in Thessa's otherworldly eyes. A synchronized transformation. If they all changed at once, the containment systems would be overwhelmed. "And we create a distraction outside," Raikir added. "Make them think it's a full assault." Commander Vess smiled grimly. "My people can certainly provide that." They spent 3 days preparing. Nova and Raikir modified their shuttle's communications array to amplify Thessa's psychic connection. Resistance fighters prepared their ships, armed with weapons that would look impressive but cause minimal damage. Remember, Nova told the gathered strike team, "This is about rescue, not revenge. We go in, we get the prisoners, we get out. The evidence we gather will do more damage to the Dominion than any battle." The attack began at station shift change. Resistance ships emerged from the debris field, weapons blazing. Station defenses responded exactly as predicted, focusing on the obvious threat. Their shuttles slipped through the chaos, broadcasting new fake credentials. With security distracted, they docked at a maintenance port near the laboratories. "Life support breach in Section 7, Pixel reported, hacking the station systems. Security teams responding." Nova nodded to Thessa. "Ready?" The transformed being closed her eyes, her form blazing with inner light. Through their modified comm system, she reached out to the other prisoners. "I feel them," she whispered. "So much fear, pain, but also hope." Nova and Riker guarded her as she worked, watching security feeds for approaching threats. Minutes stretched like hours. Then alarms blared throughout the station. Not security alerts, but containment warnings. "Multiple breaches detected in research laboratories," Pixel announced. "Stasis fields failing." "They're doing it." Thessa's voice held wonder. "They're choosing to change." The station shuddered as dozens of containment fields overloaded simultaneously. Security forces rushed to the laboratories, only to find transformed beings like Thessa, their newfound powers overwhelming automated defenses. "Now comes the hard part," Riker muttered. "Getting them all to the ship." But Thessa smiled. "They're already coming. I've shown them the way." The first transformed prisoners reached them minutes later, their forms shifting between states as they learned to control their new abilities. Nova recognized features from multiple species, all changed into something new. Quickly, she urged them aboard. Before they, "Intruders detected in Maintenance Bay 3, the station's AI announced. "Security protocols engage." Blast doors began closing throughout the section. The last group of prisoners barely made it through before they sealed. "We're locked in," Riker reported from the shuttle's controls. "Override codes aren't working." Nova turned to the gathered transforms. "Anyone feel up to making us a new door?" Several stepped forward, their combined powers ripping through the station's hull like paper. Emergency force fields contained the breach, but they had their exit. As their overloaded shuttle limped away from the station, Nova watched the resistance ships begin their retreat. The Dominion would recover, would try to recreate Project Ascension elsewhere. But they'd lost their test subjects, their data, and soon their secrecy. "Where will they go?" she asked Thessa, watching the former prisoners support each other, learning to control their changes. "There's a place," Thessa replied. "A world I saw in dreams during my transformation. Somewhere we can learn, grow, become what we're meant to be. And perhaps help others who are ready to change." Nova smiled. "Sounds like you could use a guide. Someone who knows how to stay off the Dominion's radar. And someone to help them control their powers," Riker added. "Teach them what they can really do." Thessa's form stabilized into something both beautiful and alien. "Together then. But first, we have evidence to release. The galaxy needs to know what the Dominion tried to do. And what they created instead," Nova agreed. "Something they couldn't control." As they plotted a course for safe harbor, Nova reflected that some chains, once broken, forged themselves into something stronger. Not restraints, but connections. Bonds freely chosen, not forced. The Dominion had tried to force evolution. Instead, they'd sparked a revolution. 3 months after the rescue, Nova stood on the surface of a world with no name, watching the transformed beings create their sanctuary. The planet's twin suns painted everything in perpetual twilight, perfect for those who lived between forms. Thessa emerged from the growing settlement, her iridescent form now completely stable, the last groups adjusting well. Having others who understand, who've been through the same thing, it helps. "And the Dominion?" Nova asked. Still searching, Riker approached, checking data on his wrist computer. But the evidence we released did its job. 3 sector governors resigned. Military leadership under investigation. Public demanding answers about secret research programs. The transformed had built their homes into the living crystal formations that dotted the landscape. The structures pulsed with bioluminescence, reflecting their inhabitants' nature. "They're coming," Thessa said suddenly, her eyes going distant. "More like us. Not from laboratories. Natural transformations." They felt our call. Nova had seen it happening. Across the galaxy, individuals were discovering their own capacity for change. The Dominion had tried to force evolution, but they'd accidentally awakened something that was already there, waiting. The old resistance networks are helping them find their way here, Riker confirmed. But the Dominion's getting desperate. They've doubled the bounty on any information about transformed beings. A flash of light announced new arrivals. 3 figures emerged from what looked like a tear in space, another transformed ability they were still understanding. The newcomers' forms shifted uncertainly, but there was no fear in their eyes, only wonder. Thessa moved to welcome them, her presence immediately calming their unstable transformations. She'd become a guide, helping others navigate their changes just as she'd helped the laboratory survivors. "Did you ever imagine this?" Nova asked Riker as they watched the integration. "When we found that message in the ruins, that we'd help start an evolutionary revolution?" His scales shimmered with amusement. "Not exactly. Though the credits from selling that story to underground news networks didn't hurt." Nova smiled, but her expression turned serious as she checked her own data feeds. "They're not giving up. Dominion's established research stations in 12 new locations. They're still trying to control it, force it. They don't understand." Thessa rejoined them. "The change comes from acceptance, not control. From embracing possibility, not forcing it." The settlement's warning systems suddenly flared. Multiple ships dropping out of hyperspace at the edge of the system. "Dominion signatures," Pixel reported. "Heavy cruiser class." "They found us." But Thessa remained calm. "No, they found what we wanted them to find." The transformed gathered, their combined abilities creating a spectacular light show visible from orbit. The Dominion ships would detect massive energy readings, signs of a major settlement. But by the time they landed, they'd find only crystal formations refracting sunlight. No beings, no technology, no evidence of habitation. "The real sanctuary?" Nova asked, understanding dawning. Thessa smiled. "Exists in a space between spaces. They can't find what they can't perceive." Around them, reality began to shift. The transformed, now numbering in the hundreds, joined their abilities. They weren't running, weren't hiding. They were transcending. The crystalline city shimmered, folding into dimensions the Dominion's sensors couldn't detect. Nova felt Thessa's hand in hers, anchoring her through the transition. When it finished, the sanctuary existed in multiple states simultaneously, physical enough to inhabit, but ephemeral enough to evade detection. A perfect expression of what the transformed had become. "They'll keep hunting," Riker observed, watching Dominion landing craft descend toward the decoy site. "Let them," Nova replied. "While they chase shadows, we'll help others find their way here. Not to hide, but to become." Thessa nodded. "The change is spreading. Natural, unstoppable." The Dominion tried to create weapons, but instead they revealed a door. And now that it's open, she gestured at the newcomers, already being welcomed into the community. Each would discover their own unique expression of transformation. Each would help expand the sanctuary's capabilities. "So," Riker grinned, ready for another adventure. "I hear there are more ruins out there, more messages waiting to be found." Nova watched a group of transformed children playing, their forms shifting with their laughter. The Dominion had wanted to force evolution's next step. Instead, they'd helped reveal that evolution wasn't about control or domination. It was about choice, about becoming. Always ready, she said. After all, there are more stories out there, more chains to break. Above them, the sanctuary's crystal spires refracted impossible colors through dimensions science couldn't explain. A new civilization taking shape, born from the fusion of courage and transformation. And somewhere in the ruins of distant worlds, more messages waited, more calls for help, more opportunities to show others that the greatest changes couldn't be forced. They had to be chosen, had to be earned, had to be free.